It is 5:01. We will call this meeting of the Findlay Water and Sewer Committee to order. All are in attendance on the committee side. Lee, thank you for coming in. For Mr. Kalb, we were expecting folks from Shady Lake Campgrounds, and seeing as though they're not here, I say that we move to our second item, the continued discussions on policies and procedures for, first, approved minutes. Thank you, Mr. Greeno. We had minutes, once again, thanks to Jacqueline Holman, and I think the intern did a lot of work on those. Colette,
She did a nice job.
bless her heart. I spent, well, that you got them at whatever time last night, because that's what time I finished going through them. Thankfully, YouTube has a little setting you can listen to things at like 1.5 speed. Unfortunately, I can't type at 1.5 speed, so I'll look for. I hope you had a chance to look at them. There was a lot covered in that last meeting. Look for a motion.
I did read them, and I will move to approve.
Thank you,
the
Dan.
minutes.
Second with Mr. Greeno. All in favor of approving the minutes as circulated, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and they are approved. So now let's move into agenda items, and I say we go right to the second, continued discussions on the policies and procedures. And bear with me as I try to catch up. So where we left this is that Rob and I were going to work together on creating some language. We decided that the best place for verbiage would be in the water, in the water rules and the sewer rules as appropriate. And I have, in working with Rob, we put together kind of a proposal of language. In essence, in the section. We're just using water. The water as an example. This is simply an additional paragraph in the miscellaneous section of the water rules. And I think in the email, I sent this to you via email for discussion, and Rob thankfully printed some of these off so we don't have to all be looking at our phones. And I think I sent it about 23 minutes ago to show you about how fresh this baby is. And as putting it together, I had, this is a draft, this is a working copy, but I think it pretty much summarizes what we're trying to do. And Rob, I don't know, so you've seen it all of 23 minutes.
Well, if I may, just this.
Please.
Again, this is kind of, we've talked about this since the whole progress or the process started when we actually made the changes. And they're like, well, how are we going to handle this in the future? We don't want to wait 11 years, et cetera. And so these were ideas that we'd been spitballing and kind of talking through the minutia and how fluid it was going to be. So this is nothing new. This was just putting those conversations kind of in a format that would capture, this is what we're going to do to maintain a consistent process that we can follow no matter who's in what role. It's in the rules. We can reference them, and we're held accountable that every year we're going to pull this data, the operational, capital expenses, et cetera. We're going to put it together in a pro forma situation and say, how do the rates compare to what our demands are? And then we will then bring that to water and sewer for a conversation, maybe a recommendation or two in there. With different scenarios. If we do X, this will be the results to the bottom line, et cetera. Hey, we have this water or master plan that's been put together, and we have these heavy lifts of capital coming up in the next few years. We're going to have to make these adjustments. Have those conversations before budget with the recommendation, and bring all the individuals that are needing to be in the conversation from the auditor's office, everyone involved. I mean, who all is involved in the capital and operational budget process. So there's nothing new here. It's just the process that we've talked about.
If it would be the committee's, sir, are you here with Shady Lake? Yeah. Good. if it'd be the committee's, okay with it, I'd like to move to item 1 so we can take care of the constituent, so he doesn't have to sit here and listen to this, and we can be respectful of his time if that is, everybody's okay with that. So we're gonna jump back to, item number 1, and sir, that means you are up. Welcome to the Findlay Water and Sewer Committee. Kind of come up here. What is your name, sir?
My name is TJ Rowland, or Terrence Rowland.
Rolland,
Rowland.
and you're with the campgrounds.
Yes.
So, Lee or Rob, do you want to do a quick intro? I don't know how much the committee knows about this request. I've been talking a little bit
Yeah.
with Jeremy about it. So, do you want to? Does somebody want to give
I
a
know zero.
quick
Would it
overview?
help, Jeremy put together some cost as well as kind of the conversation timeline. Is that helpful for you all?
At this point, just
Okay.
let's talk about what we're even here talking about.
Yep. So thank you for coming, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
The city engineer Calb, who you've been talking to, wasn't able to be here, but his assistant's here. So kind of kick off, my understanding is Mr. Rowland, he is the manager, owner
Yeah.
of, I'm sorry,
Shady Lake.
Shady Lake, the campground that is off of 220, between 220 and 75, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Up by south of Mortimer, the railroad tracks, tucked in over.
This is outside the city?
Yes, it is outside the city.
all right.
And
Technically,
this gentleman reached out to Jeremy and requested water and sewer to be ran to his campgrounds. It is outside of the city, and Jeremy had a conversation with him and explained that this would be the responsibility of the property owner because it is not in the city. It's not in a situation where it's even contiguous to be annexed into the city. So the expense would fall on this property owner. And Jeremy ran some just raw, high-level numbers with some assumption in it on what it would cost to run it from our existing ladder or lines, our transmission lines that are running in that area. And it's, I mean, for both together, it's $676,000 and change for both sanitary and water. So, and that was explained to the gentleman, and he still wanted to come and have a conversation with you all. So that's 30,000 foot high level. I don't want to misspeak for any of the conversation you had. Was that pretty close to?
Yeah, it was fairly close to the
Okay,
conversation.
so I'll pause and then they can take over. I can add if I need to.
So, one quick question for Lee or Rob. We have we have something going up to Van Buren. About approximately where is that, especially in and I have this as off of 101. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. Where's our lateral in relationship to?
It's on North Main Street Extended, but it's about a half-mile run over to his campground, and about a half-mile water and sewer line.
East side,
Do you
east side
have
of
an address I can plug in just to
I
see?
do. Absolutely. 11506.
I have maps, sorry.
Oh, well, that would be helpful. Okay, let's
Yeah.
start there.
Like,
I don't even know what we're
Yeah.
talking about.
So if we're looking at Whirlpool, it's literally the outskirt road of Whirlpool. We're right there before you see the bridge, the overpass.
Like north
So-
of
I believe the
Whirlpool?
water's on the east.
It's
side.
to the west of Whirlpool.
North and west of Whirlpool? Okay.
so Lee, is it on the east side or west side of
I believe the
Main?
water's on the east side. I'm not sure on the sewer.
Okay.
They're both right on.
And
the
the
right
main,
area.
and our main line goes right through here?
This is 99.
Yeah, and our main line up to Van Buren's right on that. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
Dan, just so you know, we are not trying to engineer this project, so take the engineering hat off and put the
I'm just
city
trying to
council.
figure out what we're talking about.
We could engineer it if you guys.
Okay, so Mr. Rowland,
Yes.
the floor is yours. Introduce us to your project, to your campground,
Okay.
why you are interested in why you came to the city, and
Yeah.
fill us in.
So obviously it's an ever-growing and changing community that we live in, world we live in, for that matter, and it's going rapid. So the days of campgrounds just sitting there and French water drains and such, those are kind of gone. we're grandfathered into that still. We don't use the French water drains anymore. Those are actually technically gone. But we do have a couple dump stations that we have Bugners come out, and it's a handful of dollars that we pay every month for them to remove the sewage and waste from our park. The water, not necessarily as much of an issue. I just kind of assumed that with sewer being ran, water would kind of go tangent with it. With that being said, in order to help my business grow and not die, I'm looking at trying to get sewers, even if not to the entire park. I'm licensed for 140 lots to half of the park, which is roughly about 60 lots on the south side of the park. So with that being said, I know I had a couple conversations with Jeremy about coming up with the finances for it or how this would work. He wasn't able to elaborate so much aside from sending me an estimate, but I was hoping that there was some sort of grants or anything along those lines as far as money or monetary value that we can help offset it. $640,000 is probably close to how much my park costs. I don't know that that's something that I could even necessarily come up with on my own, or how that's even supposed to come about with that business to stay afloat. It's not my primary source of income. It is a secondary source of income. I'm an electrician by trade. But it's been in my family for 35 years, and it's definitely something that I would like to, I guess, petition for if I could help keep it going.
So, real quick, this body, we are a committee or subcommittee of the full city council.
Okay.
And so we examine issues, and then we issue a report to city council with our recommendations. And this body, in essence, can say, yeah, we would pursue running this extension or these extensions, plural, or not. But regardless, our recommendation goes to full council. Councils can tell us to go fly a kite, or they can agree. What we are not in the business of doing is providing that funding. That is not something that the city does. The city has a functions. We can have conversations about places you could pursue, or avenues you could pursue. But if you're here looking at the city as a funding source, even as a loaning source for some kind of payback loan, that is not something that we are in the position to do, can do, will do, or will even entertain.
Well, not even as full in totality, but in a sense of like, the council does look at other projects as far as growth and expansion when it comes to sewer and water in general, correct? Like for if there were other businesses, or hey, if we had Marathon, they want to put up a couple buildings over here, or there's future development, then you guys would talk on that behalf, wouldn't you?
Correct. We're doing something similar with the Sheets building on County Road or Township Road 190, whatever.
99.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And that is a contiguous property to the city of Findlay. That is I think the payback on that for our investment is 3 to 4 years. So it's a pretty good quick payback.
Sure.
So yes, in that sense, we kicked in city funds to do that, along with Ohio development funds and others. So that is an avenue, but that's a pretty special, unique case, and I'm not sure that the criteria fits here, especially since we're not contiguous. Where we would entertain from a funding standpoint, I don't think they're in the same church, but not even close in the same pews, so to speak. It's
No,
just that's not an apples to apples comparison. Now, organizations like Hancock Regional Planning might be one to talk to as a possibility for funding, and also actually the health department, because you're talking about sanitary. But I would Hancock Regional Planning would be my first thought, because with the especially with the sanitary and our algae blooms and all that kind of effort gets a lot more attention these days.
Yeah.
But regional planning would provide that service independent of us. And Mr. Martin, I see you wanting to jump in.
Just to that point, we did reach out to Matt and his team at HRPC, and for this type of project, there is not grant funding for this.
Okay.
The health department, that's a good idea that we did not go down that road yet. So that might be an option. I don't know. When it comes to funding, they're more in the enforcement and the preventative
Yeah.
aspect for rather funding. However, they might know of a way or know of an avenue to go after it. But that's a stretch.
And based on previous meetings, their funding is limited for simple septic replacement, for example. The other ones I was thinking, I wonder if Blanchard River Watershed Partnership might have ideas based on clean water and the whole H2 Ohio trend. But that is, that's not something that we would. In a situation like that, and like what happened with Sheets, the Sheets worked with our economic development team in the state of Ohio, and they in essence, they came to the city with, in essence, a package of an offer. We will invest X number of millions of dollars into this facility. We need to get these utilities. Can you help us get that done?
Sure.
The state of Ohio is willing to do so much of it. Can you help us with the dollars that we did? From a standpoint of permission to do so, I know we have a rotary fees involved here, which is the county, Van Buren, and Findlay jointly paid to make these extensions to Van Buren. And so they invested that, and when people connect into it, they look to get some of their investment back at a high level. So I know that's comes into play. For you, it wouldn't change the cost; just changes where your tap money go, where your fees go. From our sense, our body would just say if we think this is something that council should consider doing. And so that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
So you and anybody on the committee, please jump in.
Has there been any approach? I mean, the EPA is not wanting you to do this.
No, this is
all just.
this was something that it kickstarted. I'd say a couple months ago.
Okay.
I was tossing the idea around. Then got a hold of Hancock Regional Planning, and then
Okay.
they sent me to Findlay City Engineering. Then I talked to Jeremy. We exchanged emails, phone calls, maybe over the course of 6 weeks, which ultimately led to, hey, do we have some rough numbers, et cetera, et cetera. And then just showing up here as far as kind of looking for guidance, I guess, would be the biggest thing. I'm not necessarily asking for money.
Right.
It's not. It's more, there's a lot of experience in this room, a lot of expertise, a lot of connections that I don't have, that I couldn't even come close to having correctly. So,
Yes. You said you have Booker or an outside person come in, and do you have like holding tanks out there?
I do,
or
yes. Mhm.
Not, you don't have septic tanks that are actually leaching out. You have actual holding tanks that are.
Yep,
pumped
they're
out,
holding tanks
correct?
that get, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Right.
So just as far as the overall, like I said, growth and development of the park, as far as expansion, that's kind of a selling point. People call and say, hey, what do you got? Dump stations are fine, still takes people in, but I know Adventure Bound, the Van Buren State Park, like there's other parks even in this immediate area that are tied to the sewer, which is kind of another reason as to why I was coming to you guys, because I know Pleasant View is tied into some sewer, but I don't know how that came about or where that money would have
I
came
have
from.
one question, I think, for Lee. Where, if this was to go forward and where it would tie into our sewer system, is that on the force main section or is that on the gravity section?
That I don't have an answer for. Me. We can tie it either way. If it's on the force main, then we would need, at least pump station. Jeremy didn't have anything in his estimate.
Okay.
He talked about it. It was gravity.
Yeah.
It was
so
gravity.
By not
Yes.
having that
So-
in
Because that
there.
makes a big difference.
Yeah,
really.
no pump
Yeah.
station.
So,
It was
yeah.
the elevation was good, so it was
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, all by gravity.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have property for expansion? I mean, are you already full? I mean, like,
It's-
property you own?
There's 28 acres that we have. The acreage that's around us is all owned by the Moss family, and they.
So 28 acres, how many acres is the park, your trailer's actually on right now? I mean, is it,
Minus the 8 acres for the pond and roughly 18 acres,
so you're utilizing 18 out of, okay. So there's-
roughly.
Okay, so there's no real room for expansion, not really. So
Right.
You're pretty full already.
Yeah, as far as lot size, and I do have open field that could potentially house another 10 to 15 more lots that, like I said, as far as future development, potentially putting in a new bathroom facility, but all of these things are all contingent. I can't really put in a new bathroom facility. And
I guess I
slap
was
the
just
thing.
thinking, I mean, in general, the community has a housing shortage, right? I mean, is this an expansion and part of that solution? I don't know, but, you know.
So, and I do get people that run through that. Like I said, roughly 50% is where I'm at as far as lot rental. Now, I know that's there is a fee as far as once you tie into the sewer, as far as a source of income that does come back to the city or whoever. And as that number increases, as it becomes more enticing, it does offer, I guess, a solution to a housing shortage. So,
So are you targeting then full-time residents, or are you looking at folks that are connecting up that are traveling and like simply on like the family vacation type of thing?
So
Or
my
both?
main market is actually, I do have seasonals, roughly 30 seasonals, and then another 30 of them are anywhere from weekly to monthly people who actually work in the area.
Okay.
A lot of people for the Sheets distribution, for this new gas station that's going on 99 on the corner. They come through there, a lot of concrete workers. When the pipeline was coming through 6 years ago, I had maybe a half dozen pipeliners that come through. So I do house a lot of workers that come into the area and help do work with the city of Findlay. That would obviously expand if conditions were different. So I don't plan on taking away my combined park camp license because that is a special license that allows me to, if there was an issue or problematic people, any type of drug-related activity, violent activity, they're able to be removed immediately. The law enforcement's able to take them right off the property. That's it. As soon as you start talking about residency, that's when you start getting into your 30-day, 60-day eviction notices. It's a lot more difficult. Nuisances as far as removing people. But being a combined park camp, there is no extended time frame. There is no limit to how long someone can stay. And there is no limit to how long or notice I need to give somebody before I can remove them. So we're not a problematic park. I maybe get the sheriff out at my park once a year, twice a year. Oftentimes it's on, hey, just keep the peace. There's something that's going on here. Would you mind? But occasionally there is something that calls for a little bit more elevation. Nothing on the evening news, but for the most part, I try to keep a pretty tight ship.
And then I take it you're on well water now,
Yeah.
high sulfur?
Yeah.
Because I know we did the one up near Van Buren where they wanted to extend, but that was a Van Buren project in essence. Last year or so, that's what I thought we were initially talking about.
The expansion of the campgrounds out
Yeah.
to the east, that was
Yeah.
actually, their water quality was dangerous, for lack of better terms, and that was a state project, state-funded project.
Oh, wow.
So that's why, and that what we paid for was the delta we wanted to upsize because of the potential for future development. We're gonna put a pipe in the ground, let's make it larger just in case. Not extreme, but a 6 to an 8, for an example. So that's what that was, but we paid for the delta and the size of the pipe, but the project itself was paid for by ODNR
Okay.
because it was the quality of the state park's water.
Okay.
Also, that was the state park though. That wasn't Adventure Bound. Okay.
It was, I don't know what it's called, but it was the state park.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say you're providing a very needed service in our community. And I would like to work to yes, but there's a big hurdle in between here, where we're at today and where yes is,
Right. Absolutely.
I don't know. So I don't know how we get through that.
Well, I'm not even sure we have a question to address yet. This is more fact finding and informational, especially on Mr. Rowland's part. So it's not like we have something to truly decide, because he makes an interesting point on the comparison to, for example, a Sheets. But that is so, that's a question far away from where we're at right now. And just thinking about that, and I wonder if a conversation with the folks at the economic development might be in order, especially from the housing standpoint. Mr. Jarman makes a point that the service that you provide, especially for the folks building gas stations and manufacturing plants and all, and the service is there, that economic development might have an interest in that. And I know that they had previously had a small business arm that might be more akin to your business in this question. And that might be a worthwhile source to somebody to talk to.
Yeah, and,
But-
and like I said, I came here for as much as I could get from
Yeah.
you guys. I know
And,
there's.
economic development over on East Main Cross,
I'm not
part
particularly
of the
familiar
Chamber
with
of
that.
Commerce
Okay.
building, and so if you just look up the chamber and ask for the economic development folks, they'll point you in the right direction.
Okay.
I really wonder if and I wonder if they would know more on like the H2 Ohio granting cycle and something to that effect, because I think there's like a water quality issue here.
Well, if they don't have a leach field, yeah,
I'm
I don't know. We're just, but if they don't have a leach field and they just have holding tanks, they're pumping them out. They're probably not contaminating anything environmentally.
No.
Sure.
So-
yeah, because they're
No.
doing things well.
Right. Yeah.
And I still
Yeah.
offer a water sample. I actually take a water sample every month while we're open, so it does get tested. Both my wells are tested every month, so there isn't necessarily a hazard that we found.
So
in
the H2 Ohio would be more interested in the sewer contaminating the waters of the state. You know, they would, so.
I
they'd
would,
be-
I would
so-
have assumed that Jeremy, knowing how
Yeah.
resourceful he is, looking at different grant funding opportunities, that would have been probably one of the first ones if it was an opportunity. But I like the idea of economic development. They're resourceful. They have, the conversation where it went about housing was not where I thought. I was under the impression this was a all recreational campground. They might be able to help drive you in a different direction. I think that's a great place to start.
Is there opportunity along 101? Is there any other development opportunities there?
Well, at this point, the only other business that I'm aware of is AWS, is right there in the corner as you
Yeah.
head west, and then the road jogs north. It's mostly agricultural as you move south. However, a point that there is a property owner that owned Racetrack gas station property, and he sold that.
Yeah.
And he owns all the way up to Township Road 100, and I believe north of it as well. Not all the way to, I'm sorry, I can't read that, whatever road that's, 101, and not all the way to 101, but he owns about up to halfway along the east side of 75 there, if you can see a large rectangle.
Yeah.
So there's a property owner that owned from 99 all the way up to about halfway between 100 and 101. And I do know that he's interested in development. I mean, but it's obviously getting the developers to invest, right? But first step was Racetrack. And so we were looking at that, Jeremy and the team were looking at that. And the conversation was, if that's not a 1-year plan or even probably a 3-year plan.
Sure.
But if that happened and it continued to grow north, as the owner and developers would want it, that would be a cheaper, easier route versus.
And we're thinking along the same lines. The project, the project of getting from an existing sanitary and existing water to your property gets less expensive the more people you can get involved. And so that's what you're thinking is, I think it's Dr. Lai, I believe is who owns that. And so maybe it's not coming from the east, maybe it's coming from the south to you is a option. And if Dr. Lai gets development in there, that becomes it becomes more affordable. Or you talk to those landowners and interest them in some kind of development, and it gets you closer to your property. From the perspective of the estimate that Jeremy gave, he gave a rough ballpark estimate of what, 650. And so just for rough numbers, you're in the $700,000 range. How can you split that cost? I think economic development would probably be my phone call tomorrow morning, just to set up a conversation and get their ideas on it. And I know Dan Schaefer, and I can let him know to keep his ears open for your call and give him a heads up as to a little bit what we're talking about.
That'd be awesome.
To help you out. I think that's the direction I would go at this time. And then if at a future point in time, plans get better set so that you have a way to fund that, to fund the connection, whatever it is, and you so desire to make that connection, then come back and we can consider it. And I'm just going to speak for myself, and this is not asking anybody else on council to answer to this question. I'm personally, I look favorably on projects like this because it offers a regional benefit that we take care of sanitary, and then we provide a water service that we could sell more water, which is, so I would look favorably on it, but I don't think we're to the point where whatever I think or my personal view has any play in our decision point at this point.
Sure.
Mr.
No,
Chairman.
absolutely.
Please.
I guess that would be my question. If in the future this is a road we go down, how long until we recoup our investment in terms of sewer fees and water rate fees, that sort of thing?
Well, this isn't our investment, so the
Well, I'm saying
Mr.
if.
Rowland would be paying to make the connections. We're making our time, our costs is Mr. Kalb's time.
So the long and the short is, the rotary, he would pay into the existing rotary, and then if he makes that initial investment for this connection, anyone between, after that, he would actually recoup his investment, but it's a 10-year window
Okay.
to recoup that with the rotary. So you kind of want to find that window of where that, to your point, where that opportunity of development might create that return on your investment. When it comes to sanitary rates, sewer rates and water, it depends on usage. That's obviously it's not in city. The word escapes me. In versus out, sorry. It's not very articulate, but that would be a determiner, as well as the amount of people, the density, as well as the usage. But I don't know if that will, I can't give you a number on years for the ROI.
Now, how much, I guess, of this project would have to be, I guess, contracted out? Or is there stipulations or regulations on who can perform this work? Like, as far as myself, am I not qualified to do X amount? Obviously, the tap, I know you need a tap license, but,
Typically, anything like that, we require like contractors, qualified contractors. Same as what we did for ODNR, we would provide inspection, make sure it's installed and built properly to meet our standards. So you'd have to meet all of our requirements, all the EPA requirements for construction. Not saying you couldn't do it yourself, but it would definitely save you some costs if you did it yourself.
Sure.
But I'm not sure on that side where we'd be on that. But for our contracts, we require someone to have to be bonded, have insurance to cover the costs. And so, again, if it's a private, if it's gonna remain private, that's, but if it's gonna be a public line, my gut reaction first thought is that we'd have to have a contractor to do that, someone qualified.
for just the tapping purpose or portion,
for
or
the
the entire run, the entire
the entire
project?
run. It's
Okay.
not- Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty straightforward, but it's not. I mean,
No, I'm
yeah.
not downgrading
No,
in
no,
any
I-
way, shape, or
no,
form,
no, I
devaluing
understand
it.
that, yeah.
But like I
And
said, I'm
know
in the
you know
construction field, so
Yeah,
I
you know construction,
I-
it's
you're right.
electric, it's,
So.
it's not as easy as connecting two wires, same thing, and it's.
Sure.
Yeah, it's-
Even from my non-engineering viewpoint, I mean, even working in the right-of-way, you're going over different property lines and so forth, so access, I mean, the contractors that we see do these are companies that do this, that's all they do, so.
Sure, yeah, no.
Yeah, we'd have to talk through that if we actually got to the point of design phase and getting everyone that needs to check off on it from the EPA down to bless it.
Sure.
It's pretty lengthy, so.
In addition to the city, you're gonna be in either county or township road right of ways. They're gonna have a say in what you do and how you build.
Would we run that as a project that we bid and all, or would Mr. Rowland do that and we would simply inspect?
We would simply inspect, yeah, it'd
Okay.
be his project, and it'd be a private project, because it would be our line, our water, and our sewer. It would
Okay.
provide the oversight and inspection, not any of the design.
It was just stated, and I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier, and we've dealt with this with other sanitary projects. I think another conversation you might want to have is with your township trustees and the county commissioners, county engineer, Doug Cade, when it comes to this type of thing, and your township trustees. Those are technically, yes, this is the city water coming out, but it's their right of way, their rules when it comes to access management, and things they're different in the county than they are in the city. Not better or worse, just different based on the rules that they have to follow. So those are the trustees and the commissioners, and even the city engineer, or county engineer, or some other individuals I would start having a conversation about this with.
Yeah, I spoke with Allen Township, because I know that was Jeremy where he first directed me, at least to get their blessing or confirm, and everyone had all thumbs up, but you're telling me to reach into the county sector now.
Well,
as far as-
the town, typically, we just dealt with Allen Township for the Sheets project, because those are township roads. The county engineer acted to some extent as their advisory engineer. There's a fine line there, because when you start talking sanitary sewer, the county engineer will remind you they are not sanitary engineers. The county does have a sanitary engineer, Steve Wilson, that deals with that part of it. So there's some gray lines that are easily crossed, and county engineer's office will quickly remind you what's their jurisdiction, what's ours, what's some sanitary engineer. And they give the township advice on how it should be built. And that was a problem we ran into with DNR. The county was providing guidance that we didn't agree with. Frankly, we couldn't accept their guidance, so there was a little bit of headbutting on that, but.
So who ultimately, I guess, won that battle? Is the county or the city?
Well, I think ODNR probably has enough weight that they won that water line, and they supported what we wanted for those particular parts.
Okay, so ODNR is the judge per se? in
Well,
this?
they just have a bigger hammer than we do. I mean, they're a
Gotcha.
state agency,
Yeah, no,
so I'm not sure, what all happened behind the scenes, but my guess is that ODNR said, hey, we want this. This is what the city requires, we need to get it.
But that was specific to that project, and ODNR was involved because it was a state park.
Right, I'm just.
So
yeah,
ODNR
giving
would
an
not
example.
be,
Yeah,
would
they have
not
a
be
bigger
part of
state.
your conversation,
unless I had state funding in some way, shape, or form.
unless you made it a state park.
Oh,
DeWine,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Mike DeWine Park.
Mike, do I? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll try.
Yeah, and
But-
you're correct, yeah, I'm just using that as an example, that they could get things approved quicker than we could or you could, because they have the house, so I mean, we would still require it to be built to our standards, and if the county engineer didn't agree with us, I'm not sure where it goes. 'Cause
So I think the call I'd make tomorrow is starting with Dan Schaefer at Economic Development,
Dan
so
Schaefer.
at the Chamber of Commerce, and I'll email him tonight when I'm done here, and just give him a heads up,
Yeah.
and
that's awesome.
and start with them. All
Yeah.
right?
No, thank you again.
One more thought, if I could.
Yes, sir.
Just another, I don't know, business approach to it is, we have this issue of housing, right? Okay, so be part of that solution, right? So that's why I was asking you about expansion. Think about partnering with a developer that has money that could help, you know what I mean? And, and make a bigger, and that way when you bring the 670 gets divided by a lot more lots.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So if you have any friends with a lot of money that are into development kind of thing,
Wish I did.
But
I
there are,
really
there are,
wish I did.
I mean, there are businessmen in town that might be interested in that kind of thing. So,
Sure.
but that's why I was asking about the property and, so.
Yeah,
something.
no, and I
So-
really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Seriously, I
yeah.
genuinely appreciate it. Everybody's responses. This helps me get one step closer. I know it's going to be a marathon, but yeah, I figured I'd go to the body first, see what I can do. So got to start somewhere. Yep, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Yep, you guys have a good one.
So back to the water review rules. A quick summary of what Rob and I tried to say in this. The first paragraph basically says, hey, the administration is going to be analyzing their funds. They do that already. The second paragraph says they're going to come to this body in September before and I just added this as out of my own mind. They're going to come to the body before our second meeting in September and give us an annual presentation on the analysis that they are doing. And we are going to, and then I say in that analysis, or at that meeting, if there's going to be a proposed funding rate change, you got to make it at that meeting. And then the rest of it basically says the presentation is going to be in the form of a pro forma, and then I kind of say the pro forma is going to include some stuff, and I'm not sure that I'm not sure if we want to say what's included in the pro forma or not, or if I didn't include enough description in that, or if that's too detailed. That's for your all consideration. This is kind of it's a first draft, but I also said that we also said in here that if a change in rates is going to be recommended, then two pro formas are going to be presented at this meeting. One is the current existing rates and how it looks out over time, and the second one is if the suggested rates went into place or were adopted, and then what does the financial things look like? And that's what this paragraph or this section tries to say. And so you can read through it. I got a ton of questions to ask myself on it, or to ask about it, because I can play devil's advocate with anything. But just general thoughts: are we barking up the right tree here?
So generally, I'm on board with the way this reads. I mean, the high-level concept of it. A couple items that I think are missing. We talked about the frequency of a third-party independent analysis. We kind of kicked around a 5-year. I don't know. So that, I don't know. I'm not even sure what we decided. I don't think we did decide, but okay, so that's fine. But that probably needs to be put in there somewhere. And maybe the frequency is to be determined, but and then the second, we're going to expand this not just to water, but to sanitary and storm, and that needs to be in here somewhere
Well,
too. So.
this is just the water rules, so there'll
Okay.
be a separate one of these for
Oh, I got you.
sanitary
Okay.
and storm.
Okay, very good.
And that would be in the, I think, what is storm under this, is stormwater under the sanitary? So that would be under the sanitary rules, and so it would say almost the exact same thing, except for where you see water, it would say sanitary stormwater, whatever.
I mean, I think this is kind of an amalgamation of what we've been talking about all along. So, I mean, I'm on board with it. Maybe a few tweaks.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a very good outline of what we want to do. It's just cleaning up some of the language and getting some particulars in there as well.
Do you need a motion on this?
No,
Grant, or-
no, not it. So one of the questions I had is so I don't think this is final, because like I said, 23 minutes ago or whatever. And as I was putting this together, I said, does this mean that you can't change rates in the middle of the year? You can only do it before the second, between September 1 and the second meeting in September, that rates have to be proposed. And is that right? So that was one of the first things, and I was looking for thoughts, opinions on, is it too detailed or not detailed enough when we describe the pro forma? And does that lock, we can always change it. I was gonna say, does that lock you into using this type of analysis? But if you come up with a better way to do analysis and present, we just change the rules. I mean, that's not a
Well,
problem.
I mean, I think we could get away with saying something like, however, should the need arise, rates can be examined with consent or by memo notifying us of the kind of the situation prior to a September date. I mean, does that sound agreeable?
If we can't figure it out year to year, we're in trouble. So I would
and-
only do it if it was an emergency. I mean, some catastrophic thing happened.
I appreciate what you guys are trying to add in there to create every scenario, but what I was gonna say is, we're running multi-year pro formas when we do this. I mean, the one we did, we ran out 10 years to
Right.
35, and we know where the next hiccup's gonna happen if everything stays as is. This is creating a cyclical process that we're gonna follow.
Yeah.
If stuff goes sideways between now and then, we're gonna call a meeting and go, we have a problem, and we need to solve it, and it's gonna either be funding or whatever. So, and I think our fingers on the pulse every month, man. I march out the operational expenses to each of my departments, budget to actual, and then I have a running total to the end of the year, actual to budget, and I see where the pitfalls are gonna be, and then I get with the department heads and go, where are we at? Why is this number here? And usually I can figure out why, but then we have a discussion on what adjustments we have to make. I see no difference in this. Jason and I speak, well, multiple times a day on different things, but budgetary wise, we're talking pretty frequently on this. So
So you wouldn't worry about emergency rate changes and
I
try to
don't think that
accommodate
needs to be in this language,
Okay.
is my point. I worry about it because we don't know what's gonna happen, but this cadence, I think, in my opinion, is acceptable. And then we have to call a meeting because of an emergency situation. I have confidence that we can get that done, and we'll have to pull a plan together.
And I mean by emergency, like an earthquake, something that really devastates the system where, it's emergency.
Well, I think
like
FEMA
down
would
and-
be in here helping us out at that point, but,
Right.
but you're right, yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think what it boils down to is I trust you all over there to do the job you were hired to do. And this just kind of puts up some guardrails on that.
Yeah, but Brian, I don't trust the next guys. The guys that aren't sitting there that
Understood.
are replacing them.
Understood.
Which is what the people who served in 1980 are saying about us, and so that's why you put this. Rob, you mentioned you look forward so many years. That was another question I had on this. Should we make a statement that the pro forma looks out X number of years, and if so, how many years is that?
So I've had this for now more than 23 minutes, but I wanted the tie-in. It's almost a rolling, when you talk about a 10-year capital plan, we're forecasting out that far. So now they're placeholders, right? They're earmarks. The last 3 years, we wouldn't have guessed what some things cost now compared to when we budgeted it or scheduled the project. But I think the 10 years is a realistic number. I mean, because it gives you that outlook, and we don't know what it's going to look like, but it gives us something that's what a forecast is. Do you see a reason to change more or less? I think less is not enough, if that made sense. I think 10 years is the right, I think I wouldn't want it any less than 10, forecasting out.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, Riet, you have experience in this from your,
Well, if you're doing the 10-year capital, you might as well just keep this right along with it. I mean, it just seems to be married together and go through it.
I mean, again, we know in 2027, if we don't do anything from what we even made the adjustment, we're gonna be having the same conversation we did the last 2 years. we have something that we're faced with based on, we don't even have the master plan done yet. So we anticipate that. So we're gonna have to have that conversation. But 10-year, I think, for you to answer your question, I think is the right number. It aligns with some of the other things we're doing with capital. So,
I still like the idea of a third-party review, and I think we just need to come up with how often that we need to have that done. I just think that's a good check to check what you're checking, you know?
yeah, and when Dan brought that up, I really like that. It's like, it just certifies the numbers that we put together, and we're pulling them that, yep, that spreadsheet's right. Because, spreadsheets they're manual entry, there's opportunity there, and we triple check it. So to certify it by a third party, I think makes sense. I like that idea.
But understand, when the origins of that third-party review conversation was the 2009 or 2011 rate study that we had, and so I know when I brought that up, it was a specific rate analysis down to the meter size and all this to say is the rates I guess it's the same. It's more than just the pro forma. It's more than just an analysis of the pro forma. It's analysis of the rate structures and all. It's more detailed. Yeah, it's more in depth.
And a benchmarking against other communities, like how are we doing? Kind of.
Does every 5 sound agreeable to the
Yeah,
rest of you?
I'm kind of thinking that. Yeah, 5.
I mean, that's what I would suggest. Every 5.
For now, I know we can.
Yeah, for now.
I don't know. Does that seem reasonable, Ron?
So
I do. I'm not opposed. Again, I'd like to go back and understand what that cost would be
Yeah.
associated. So what's
Right,
the
I know.
benefit of it?
Yeah, right.
If, it takes a lot to move the battleship. So if we're on a trajectory and we know the cadence, certifying it, benchmarking,
Yeah.
I'm all for it. But if 5 years, it's a $500,000 or $1 million project, I'm just tossing numbers out.
Yeah,
Does
yeah.
that make sense every
No,
5 years?
not that number doesn't.
So
Yeah.
I agree with what you want done. I would like to understand
Yeah.
the value of it
Oh, okay.
from what the investment would be, if that makes sense.
Right.
but
Yeah, I think that I need to do some homework.
We could be going along.
you
We could be
you
going along
especially.
fine with, 5 years and maybe 7 years, and everything's looking good, so we need to make sure that we're not just gonna throw $1 million into a new rate study
Yeah.
if we don't feel that we need to have that, so.
Yeah.
So what I suggest we do here, because trying to group write and then have to take minutes on the group writing is a painful effort. Email me individually. I sent this out to you with edits and suggestions, and I will construct a revision, and we can discuss that revision at a subsequent meeting. But the one thing we can agree on without adoption of this is that sometime between September 1st and September 17th, we will have a water and sewer meeting, and there will be the presentation that from the administration to water and sewer that meets the spirit and intent of this document for the 3 funds. Looking for a nod from Mr. Martin, if that sounds.
I was trying to find the language in here. To be perfectly honest, if you think about the cadence of budget and the cadence of some of these conversations, this is not a rate change is not a one meeting conversation. Should we change the language that no later than September? Because I anticipate, if we're looking at this, I was thinking July, August, we're gonna have to have this conversation.
I was wondering if September, we had kind of settled on September at the last meeting, and one of the reasons that we did is because we changed rates, and we needed time to get those, to see the revenue response of those rates. And so that's why we were kind of talking September, but I think you could easily say anytime in the 3rd quarter prior to the 2nd meeting in September. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, so what is the goal, like, when will we see language in the water, rules that we would be sending to council to vote on? Like, what's the timeline to actually finalize this, language, I guess?
As soon as we can get it done, I think the immediacy, the urgent, excuse me, I think the urgency is off because we have an agreement in principle of what we're doing,
Oh, okay.
and we're going to follow that
Yeah,
in
okay.
principle. But I would expect that we would have this language done in Q3. I know that I'm going to start hitting some travel
Okay.
here that makes having a bunch of meetings take longer, but I think, quite honestly, I think we're close enough that if I can get some individual feedback, so that's not a reply/all, it is a reply, so we don't mess with open meetings, and I'll take take everybody's input and then put it into a new updated document
Okay.
and then present it. And I think if we get something we like, then it's just a simple, these are recommended changes
And
to
then this
water
document would be
rules.
like a recommendation to council, kind of what we're,
Yeah.
that'd be our
Yeah.
recommendation then, okay.
Just a clerical, we've been chewing on where this would fit and make sense, and both water and sewer rules have a billing for service section. So if you would, that made sense to us, if you wanted to look at that, and if you have a better suggestion, that's fine, but sewer does not have miscellaneous where water does, but they both have billing for service, so,
We can find the appropriate place
I just-
for it,
okay,
and you and I can come
Yep.
up with that.
okay.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say that we recommend continued discussions for this item, and that is my motion.
Second.
Second, Mr. Ballman, all in favor of continued discussions on this item, please say aye.
Aye.
And I heard 5 of them, I won't ask for nays. That sounds good. Trying to decide what the, we're not gonna recommend anything on the Shady Lake campgrounds. It was an informational conversation only, and that could be reflected in the minutes. So let's move on to the third item. A general discussion of sanitary sewer, offering sanitary sewer to properties within the city that aren't on the septic, that are on a septic system. And as I bring up this conversation, I want to, in my mind, consider Mr. Rowland's request, except have Mr. Rowland be in the city of Findlay. Say our city boundaries did extend past 101, and now we have that project to us. So the question, we're kind of addressing Mr. Rowland's project a little bit in a general sense. And so, what prompted this discussion or this question for us to consider is that since the West Park project, we received a contact from a citizen who is well within the city limits and is on septic, and said, when are you going to run sanitary by my place? And and the specific location isn't important for this conversation, because in essence their situation is different, but such that this doesn't really apply to them. But we come to find out that, hey, we do have other properties within the city that are on septic. Generally speaking, based on the reviewing the minutes of the last meeting and the conversations about West Park, this body said it is our general desire to move people from septic systems to our sanitary sewers. And then in the conversations with this one property owner, they bought the property at a they bought the property and were unaware it had a septic system. And I'll just leave it at that. And they just assumed, hey, it's well within the city in an established neighborhood. Why would it be on, septic? Very good point. And Jeremy and I kind of talked about this a little bit, and I've been kicking around, and I've kind of wondered what the group thinks. And then if city council were to say this is a priority for us to over time move people to sanitary, then the question is, what's the scale? How large of a issue is this? And I asked Rob to kind of take a look and see if we could get a general scope of how many of these properties do we think we have. And so this is a general conversation, not about anybody's specific property. Looking to hear what our committee thinks the city's direction on this should be.
Well, I'd like to know how many of these properties there are, general location, for starters.
So the best way we can try to come up with this number is by running water-only bills in the city of Findlay. And then you have to kind of factor out sprinklers and all these other variables. But the long and the short, the preliminary number is approximately 30 properties in the city of Findlay. The only way we get true numbers is going door to door and truly understanding what it looks like. There is no specific neighborhood. There's no specific quadrant or ward. It's a peppering. There's a few in the northeast, a few in the northwest, central, et cetera. And looking at the map, some of the ones that are actually there, we feel, for all intents and purposes, are on the city. So we did a preliminary. We feel it's about.
What do you say that again? We feel
like when we were analyzing the properties, we feel that they actually are on sanitary. So if we need to dive in deeper, but we feel there's about 30 properties in the city that are not. They have their own sanitary or septic.
So you think that we have properties that are on city sanitary that we are not billing for sanitary, is what you're saying, on some of those?
Go ahead.
No, basically, no. Looking at it from a high level, we just need to dig in because not every account was labeled the same. So verifying that it is actually not a sprinkler system or an irrigation system for the property, so that taking those outliers out of the equation on a few of them.
Well, I got to tell you, that's a better number than I was expecting to hear.
Yeah, 30's not overwhelming.
I wasn't sure what to expect, knowing
Yeah.
what we experienced in West Park. I thought the number was going to be larger, but I had no idea. But there is no cadence to where they are.
So,
I mean, given the precedent we've set, I guess common sense would dictate to me that we address these as we're in the neighborhood, let's say over 10 years or something. I don't know.
just because we did it before doesn't mean we have to, do it again. But is it something we should? But is it something over time we should work towards? Is really the.
That would be my opinion.
And we're not looking for a policy statement. I'm looking for general guidance, because one of the things you say back to the administration, okay, you got 30 properties. Can we get that down to a hard, specific number?
Yeah.
That's what I would like to see, is what
Yeah.
that number really is. I mean, if we have to do some dye testing or to see if they're hooked up, or,
So maybe-
it's not
maybe-
that hard to.
Maybe
I
by
wouldn't
the
think.
end of the calendar year, could we have some assessment on those 30 properties, kind of thing?
Well, but just for sake of conversation, let's say it's 5. Let's say it's 55 or 105. Does that change this committee's desire to see them either, see us work towards bringing them onto sanitary or not.
I don't care if it's 5 or 100.
Yeah.
We should work towards getting them off septic. They're in town. I mean,
Yeah.
the water quality issues. Let's move. Let's find out what the hard numbers are. I think that's obvious. Let's see what kind of animal we actually have, and then move forward from there.
So would you be proactive then about running projects to address these?
Maybe.
We'd,
Depends on-
we'd have to analyze them.
Yeah,
We'd have
I
to see. We'd have to see the specifics. Where do we go? Is there grant funding? We would have to analyze these and figure out what's the best way to go about them.
I mean, you're going to have a certain percentage of them that have septic tanks and the sanitaries right in front of their yard. Right on their street. And so you're going to be able to, and that would be maybe just a letter from the health department saying that please don't upgrade your leach field. When your leach field comes with natural life, we want you to tap in and not
Well,
rebuild the leach field.
Two flaws in that. Ohio Administrative Code says they have 2 years. If it's right in front of them, they got 2 years to tap. And I think the distance difference is 200 feet is a cutoff. And that also implies that the health department is going to proactively monitor this situation, which their testimony in February and April has indicated that they will not do so because they do not have the manpower nor the money to do so. Whereas,
But I thought they were agreeable to sending a letter, but yeah. I
yeah,
understand.
but if we go out and monitor it for them and do their job, yes, but our job is not enforcement. That is the health department's job, and I don't want to take on that responsibility for them.
That goes right to my point. Let's find out what kind of issues we do have, and then go from there. Whether it's asking the health department to send out letters, or whatever the case may be. Hey, they don't have access. Then we solve the problem, figure out a way to get it done.
I'm going to go into more detail on the specific call that started this conversation. The property that contacted us is just under the 200 foot limit. Technically speaking, this property owner should run a line that would be over 190 feet to a sanitary and tap in. However, they have a neighbor who is not on sanitary and cannot, and is over 200. They're just simply not close to anything, just by the nature of where they're located. So for us to get to the neighbor, we, in essence, go by this person's house. So do we sick the health department on this person and make them do a 190 plus foot extension that when we connect, if we would run a project to their neighbor, their connection would be right outside their door? And I think the answer is obvious. The answer is no, we wouldn't. But that goes into the how proactive do you want to be? And I agree, Josh, I agree with you. I think we should move towards getting people on sanitary. That's where my gut is on this. But it would need to be then a kind of a stated goal for the city to do so. When we would need to get full council support and then direct the administration to work towards that. I agree. I think we need to know the scope, but here's a situation where if you let the health department do their job, they're gonna force somebody to put in $20,000 to $25,000 worth of sanitary connection, where if we do our job, they're gonna have to do an easy tap.
Kind of goes back to, we have a housing shortage, so if there's other houses along the way that we could tap in and, I don't know. Not that we're in the development
Funny
business,
you
but-
say that. there is a property that extending a line to the one septic system that can't access an existing sanitary goes by an open lot, and all of a sudden makes that lot developable.
Right. Right.
And I was then starting to wonder, I bring into this, what do you do with tap fees? Does the undeveloped lot pay a tap fee? Does the person who is transitioning their septic to the sanitary sewer pay a tap fee? They didn't in West Park. Do they do so in one of these other 30 locations potentially in the city? Those are some of the questions I think we need to mull over. Don't need answers now. I think what we're doing is we're directing the administration to get us some more details. And then, but the part of this is get the details without jeopardizing. If these people have good working sanitary or septic, I don't want to have you publish a list of addresses and have Hancock Public Health all of a sudden put a financial burden on folks who, just because we're having a conversation.
Yeah, I think first things first. Let's figure out a hard number, and then let's do it
Without addresses.
without addresses, and then I think general location is probably a good idea, so we can get a grasp of what we're dealing with.
I feel I should say something at this point. You guys are,
And is there, like, say on this one, is there 2 or 3 houses that are all
Right.
together?
Well,
That would make sense to take care of all of them at once. you
I
know?
agree, and if we can look at our road plans and some of the projects we have going on, that we understand what this looks like, and we can get them connected when we're in the roadway or right away. You know, it's
So
other-
does that mean you pave it first and then we put in the sanitary?
No. Another example, not the one you're referring to, it's a lot, and it's an older home, but neighborhoods were built around it and just never connected, right? Because it was there, never was discussed. But for that individual to connect, even though they're surrounded by sanitary, the way it would have to run, it would be an extremely expensive project. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, because that's what needs to be done, but sanitary is perfectly healthy. They've maintained it, and there's no issue with it. But he's surrounded by sanitary. And these are the things that we're finding.
And add on to that, there's some lots right now, that we may not be sanitary to them, at least not affordably. If gravity is the easiest way to go. If you're putting a pump station for a couple of houses, we don't maintain grinder pump systems, so, you're just opening a much bigger issue. But again, that's something we can look at as we go forward, and when we give you that list, which ones are feasible.
We'll refine the list for you and bring that back
Please.
when.
Lee, are you familiar with the 2 properties on Lima Avenue and West Park that we were trying to look at how to get sanitary to?
Yeah.
Was a solution found?
No, it was one of those issues. There's just not gravity sewer available that we can extend that distance, but to extend it, we're out of the ground by the time we get there. Kind of issue. So the option is to put in some pump stations, and those get very costly to install and maintain, and looking like a campground, what's the rate of return on our investment? If they have a functioning septic system.
Yeah, we had that conversation. So those 2 on Lima Avenue, there's not a solution for the.
Unless Jeremy's a little more, last I talked to Jeremy, I did the preliminary investigation on those, right? And there's a couple of them, it's just, there's nothing to extend to them that stays on the ground.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I do believe that the one property owner who had placed in, already had placed in a new septic system was fine with that solution, that they were okay. They didn't want it anyway.
Yes.
So,
I think either one or both of those were outside the system.
yeah.
So for this, just on the committee report, we're gonna recommend the administration how about the administration prepare a detailed analysis of all properties that meet this that currently have septic systems. Does that work?
Yes.
That currently don't have sanitary sewer.
Okay, that'll be better.
I'm not sure, are we asking for a detailed, or we're looking for a high level, I think? Or,
The way I understood that is I said that, we have roughly 30 and they're peppered throughout the city. So I think you want that to be a true number.
Yes.
And the detail of proximity to perhaps
yeah,
existing
maybe it is
sewer.
detailed, okay. It
So
exists.
that's how I interpreted. You're
Right.
like, it's 22, not 30, or it's 40, not 30.
Yeah.
And the proximity to each one of those to connect is this distance.
But is this knocking on the door asking if you have a septic system, or, I mean, is this?
I don't know.
or-
I don't know that. I might have
Yeah.
been a little extreme. I'm going to rely on my experts to
Okay,
be able to
okay, yeah.
tell me that, hey, we refined these
Yeah.
data points on the Excel spreadsheet, or we're
Yeah.
able to, with GIS, et cetera. I think we have the tools to do that, and I don't know if it's televising some areas. I
You
mean,
can televise to see if there's a lateral.
yeah. So we have the tools. I don't know if it's door to door, but
Yeah.
we'll
All
get
right.
it done.
And then include in that, so that would give us an idea if there's 3 in one area that, do you start, does analysis like this start getting an idea of, oh, we could run a lateral here and get X number of them, or do you go to the point where you say, I have some Lima Avenues on here that are just not accessible, or does that type of analysis, is that too detailed?
Go ahead.
No, that's not to do it. We've got fairly accurate sewer records, so it's just scaling and putting some little bit of design time into it.
But
Just like on Lime Avenue.
I don't want to invest a lot of design effort in it. We're just trying to gather
No,
information.
if I know the elevation here and I know how many feet it is, it takes about 2 minutes to find out.
Is that algebra I didn't listen to in 7th grade?
I hope not, because I didn't do it either.
So the motion is that administration prepare a detailed analysis of currently, analysis of, kind of make sense of what I'm writing, of there's an R in there, properties that do not have sanitary sewer connections. That is a motion. Is somebody seconding? Thank you, Mr. Palmer. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And that is 5 ayes. One last question for the administration. Mr. Kalb said creating pro formas for sanitary and stormwater would be a breeze because he's got one that's good for water, and the chairman of this committee was skeptical about the term at ease, of that would be easy. How's it coming?
Well, I know we've done some of the preliminary work on the performance format is ready to go, it's just putting in the numbers. So I don't know where he's at, if he actually has it, but in the past, if you recall, we looked at school pretty good detail, and then sanitary, we focused part of all. So I don't know if it's ready to deliver, but
I just wanted, there was some things we were making progress on. I wanted to know that we were making progress on that.
progress is made, and just if you had time, you know, that conversation, let us know if we will potentially ready.
Can I ask another question?
Please.
Any progress on, we were gonna do this technical evaluation of the water system, we were gonna hire a consultant and all, is there progress being made on that?
That was that grand,
Yeah. Master plan.
master plan.
Yeah.
I believe that next, by the end of this quarter, we'll be going to council with the request for qualifications.
Okay.
Necessary or not, every recording? Okay, so, yeah, to put together the specs to actually put it out, so we can then go through the RFQ process.
Okay.
So, we're getting there.
Okay. Okay.
And with that, we'll call this meeting to a close at 6:20. Thank you.
Thank you.
sir.